Have you ever whispered a prayer so quietly that no one else could hear it, and then wondered whether even God had heard you? Perhaps it happened late at night when the room was dark and your strength was gone. You had already tried to explain what you were feeling, but the words no longer seemed large enough to hold the weight inside your heart. Perhaps your prayer was not spoken aloud at all. It may have appeared as a tear, a trembling breath, or the silent longing of a heart that had reached the limit of what it could carry alone. You asked for healing, but the pain remained. You asked for a relationship to be restored, yet the distance grew. You asked for guidance, but the road ahead still looked uncertain. You asked for relief, but another morning arrived carrying many of the same questions. As the days passed, you began to wonder whether your prayer had disappeared into the silence. Life continued moving around you. Other people seemed to receive their answers, begin new chapters, and speak confidently about trust. Meanwhile, you remained in a quiet place between what you had asked for and what had not yet appeared. It is often in this space that the mind begins creating painful explanations. It tells you that you have been forgotten. It suggests that your prayer was not important enough, that you must have done something wrong, or that perhaps you are less worthy of peace than the people around you. The longer the silence continues, the more convincing these thoughts can seem. But silence is not always rejection. Sometimes silence is preparation. A seed placed beneath the earth does not immediately become a flower. For a time, the soil appears unchanged. There is no color, no fragrance, and no visible evidence of life. From the surface, it seems as though nothing is happening. Yet in the darkness, the seed is opening. Its old form is breaking apart. Roots are reaching into unseen places. A new life is gathering strength before it can rise into the light. Your prayer may be moving through your life in the same way. You may be waiting for something outside you to change while a deeper transformation is taking place within you. Your heart may be learning to release an attachment that has caused you pain. You may be developing the wisdom needed to recognize an answer you once would have overlooked. You may be growing strong enough to receive something without losing yourself inside it. Perhaps you are being guided away from a path that could never have given you the peace you were seeking, even though it looked like the path you wanted. This does not mean your pain is insignificant. It does not mean that you must pretend to enjoy uncertainty or deny the loneliness of waiting. Spiritual trust is not the denial of human emotion. It is the willingness to feel what is present without allowing fear to become the final authority over your life. You can feel disappointed and still remain open. You can grieve and still be guided. You can admit that you do not understand and still remember that you are not alone. The fearful part of the mind wants certainty. It wants a date, a sign, and a clear explanation. It wants to know when the answer will arrive, how it will arrive, and whether it will look exactly as you imagined. This desire is understandable. The mind often believes that control will protect you from disappointment. It says, if I can predict what happens next, perhaps I will never have to feel powerless again. But control can quietly become another form of suffering. When you decide that peace can arrive only through one person, one opportunity, or one specific outcome, you place your inner life in the hands of circumstances. You begin postponing peace until the world agrees with your plan. You may say to yourself, I will feel whole when this person chooses me. I will rest when this door opens. I will trust when I can see the entire path. I will believe that God is near when the situation changes. Without realizing it, you turn peace into a reward that the future must give you. Yet peace was never meant to be held hostage by the future. There is another way to carry your prayer. You can honor the desire in your heart without demanding that life fulfill it in only one form. You can continue moving toward what feels true while releasing your insistence on when and how the answer must appear. You can say inwardly, this is what I hope for, but I am willing to be guided toward what love knows for me. That willingness creates space. It does not mean that you have stopped caring. It does not mean abandoning your dreams or becoming passive. It means becoming available to an intelligence deeper than the anxious mind. It means trusting that the same wisdom that moves the seasons, opens flowers, and guides rivers toward the ocean is also present within your life. The presence you are searching for may not be far away. It may be closer than your next thought. Beneath the questions, beneath the fear, and beneath the identity you have built around this struggle, there is a quiet awareness that has never abandoned you. You have touched it before, perhaps without realizing what it was. You may have felt it while watching the sky change at sunset. You may have sensed it in the silence after crying, when there was nothing left to resist. It may have appeared when someone held your hand without trying to fix you, or when you suddenly found the courage to forgive yourself for something you had carried for years. In those moments, the problems of your life may not have disappeared, but your relationship with them changed. For a brief time, you were no longer trapped inside the story of what should have happened. You were simply present. That presence is not asking you to become someone entirely new. It is inviting you to remember who you were before fear began speaking for you. The prayer you whispered may not have disappeared into an empty universe. It may have become the doorway through which you are being led back to your deepest self. Perhaps the question is no longer only, when will my answer arrive? Perhaps another question is beginning to emerge. Who am I becoming while I wait? The silence often reveals what noise allows us to avoid. When life is moving according to our expectations, we rarely question the voice inside us that insists everything must happen in a particular way. We call this voice reason, caution, or responsibility. Yet beneath many of its demands is a frightened identity trying to protect itself from uncertainty. This identity is often called the ego. The ego is not an enemy that must be attacked or destroyed. It is simply the image of yourself that you have constructed from memories, roles, fears, labels, and expectations. It tells you who you are by repeating what happened to you. It measures your value through the reactions of other people. It searches the past for evidence and uses that evidence to predict the future. If someone once abandoned you, the ego watches constantly for signs that it will happen again. If you were criticized, it becomes afraid of being seen. If you were loved only when you were useful, it teaches you to earn affection through exhaustion. If life once surprised you with pain, it may try to control every detail so that you will never feel helpless again. When a prayer seems unanswered, the ego becomes especially active. It begins comparing your private struggle with the visible moments of other people's lives. It asks why someone else received the relationship, healing, opportunity, or clarity that you have been waiting for. You may look at another person's beginning while you are still trying to survive an ending. You may watch someone speak with confidence while your own faith feels fragile. You may see another life flowering and decide that your own season has somehow failed. Comparison turns waiting into punishment, but you are not living another person's season. A tree does not look across the forest and feel ashamed because another tree is flowering first. Each one responds to its own soil, its own weather, and its own rhythm. The tree does not force spring to arrive. It remains rooted while life prepares its next expression. There is wisdom in offering yourself the same patience. You do not know what another person's path has required of them, just as they cannot fully know what your path is asking of you. What appears to be a delay may be protection. What feels like being left behind may be the season in which your roots are becoming strong enough to hold what comes next. What looks like an ending may be creating space for a life that could not enter while you were clinging to the old one. The ego does not enjoy mystery. It wants life to explain itself immediately. It believes that if it can understand everything, it can control everything. So it returns again and again to familiar questions. Why did this happen? What if nothing changes? What if I made the wrong decision? What if I am alone forever? What if my prayer was ignored? These questions may appear to be a search for truth, but often they are fear repeating itself in different forms. The mind believes that more thinking will bring peace, yet the thinking itself becomes the source of unrest. You replay old conversations, you imagine future disappointments, you rehearse painful possibilities that have not occurred. The body remains in the present, but the mind travels through 1,000 frightening futures. You may have experienced this late at night. The room is still, but inside you there is a storm. A delayed message becomes proof of rejection. An uncertain decision becomes a prediction of failure. A difficult season becomes a permanent identity. You are no longer simply experiencing uncertainty. You are experiencing every painful meaning the mind has attached to uncertainty. Awareness begins when you notice this without judging yourself. Instead of saying, "This fear is the truth," you may gently observe, "There is fear moving through me right now." That small change matters. The moment you can observe the fear, you are no longer completely trapped inside it. A space opens between awareness and thought. In that space, you begin remembering that you are the one who notices the mind. You are not every story the mind produces. The sky is not damaged by the clouds that pass through it. Some clouds are light and brief, others are dark and heavy, yet the open sky remains behind them all. In the same way, your true nature remains present beneath every passing emotion, thought, and fear. You may feel anxious, but anxiety is not the totality of who you are. You may feel abandoned, but the feeling itself is not proof that life has abandoned you. You may feel lost, but perhaps only the plan has been lost, not the presence guiding you. The ego confuses the loss of control with the loss of safety. It insists that if you do not know what happens next, you cannot be at peace. Yet many of the most meaningful moments in your life may have arrived through events you could never have planned. A friendship may have begun through an unexpected conversation. A new direction may have appeared after a disappointment. A painful ending may have revealed how long you had been abandoning yourself in order to keep someone else comfortable. At first, the mind called these moments disruption. Later, some of them may have revealed themselves as redirection. This does not mean every painful experience must be labeled a blessing. Some events wound us deeply. Some losses leave an emptiness that cannot be explained away with spiritual language. You do not have to call cruelty kindness or pretend that injustice did not occur. The invitation is not to deny pain. It is to stop allowing pain to decide that your life has no meaning. The human heart is spacious enough to hold more than one truth. You can trust and still experience moments of fear. You can forgive and still remember what happened. You can be healing and still have difficult days. Inner peace does not require you to become emotionless. It allows emotion to move through you without becoming your permanent identity. Perhaps you have spent much of your life pleasing other people. You learned to say yes while your heart was quietly saying no. You became skilled at anticipating everyone's needs while ignoring your own. You believed that if you could keep everyone comfortable, you would remain safe and loved. Then one day, something changed. You finally spoke honestly. You created a boundary. You stopped accepting behavior that required you to disappear. Someone became disappointed, angry, or distant, and the old fear returned. You wondered whether love would leave when you stopped sacrificing yourself. At first, this discomfort may have felt like another unanswered prayer. You had asked for peace, yet honesty seemed to create conflict. But perhaps peace was not arriving as universal approval. Perhaps it was arriving as the courage to stop betraying yourself. The ego says, keep everyone happy, and you will be safe. The deeper self whispers, live honestly, and you will be free. Freedom may feel unfamiliar when you have built your identity around being needed. Rest may feel like failure when your value has been measured through productivity. Surrender may feel irresponsible when control has been your way of surviving. But surrender is not passivity. Surrender is releasing your argument with the present moment so that you can respond to life more clearly. Imagine standing in a river and trying to push the water backward. The more force you use, the more exhausted you become. The river is not punishing you. It is simply moving according to its nature. When you stop fighting the current, you do not lose your ability to act. You recover the energy that resistance was consuming. There are moments when wise action is necessary. You may need to speak honestly, ask for help, leave an unhealthy situation, or take a courageous step toward change. Letting go does not mean remaining where love is absent. It means acting without carrying the additional burden of hatred, obsession, or the demand that the past should have been different. The past cannot be changed by replaying it. The ego may return to an old betrayal again and again, hoping that one more mental conversation will finally create a different ending. You imagine saying the perfect words. You imagine the other person finally understanding. You imagine receiving the apology that would validate everything you felt. But the past does not change when you revisit it with anger. Only your present becomes filled with the energy of what has already ended. Awareness invites a different question. Instead of asking only, why did they do this to me, you may begin asking, what am I still carrying? And is it bringing me peace? This question is not an accusation. It is not asking you to blame yourself for what another person did. It is showing you where your freedom lives. You may not control whether someone apologizes. You may not control whether they understand the pain they caused. You may not control whether the external story receives the ending you hoped for. But you can become aware of the place inside you that is still waiting for another person to give you permission to heal. The prayer you whispered may have asked for them to change. The deeper answer may be showing you that your peace cannot depend on their transformation. Perhaps you asked for a closed door to reopen, while life is teaching you that you no longer need to remain outside it. Perhaps you asked to be chosen, while the silence is inviting you to choose yourself. Perhaps you ask for certainty while you are discovering a trust that no longer requires certainty. This is how awareness transforms suffering. It does not always remove the circumstance. It changes the place from which you meet the circumstance. You stop asking the frightened mind to interpret everything. You begin listening for the quieter intelligence beneath it. This intelligence rarely shouts. It does not threaten you with imagined disasters. It may arrive as a simple inner knowing. Pause, breathe, wait, speak honestly, forgive, or release what no longer carries love. You may not hear this guidance while you are arguing with life, but when you become still, even for a moment, the deeper voice becomes easier to recognize. The ego asks, how can I force the answer to arrive? Awareness asks, how can I become peaceful enough to recognize the answer already taking shape? In this shift, the silence begins to change. It is no longer merely an empty space between you and the life you want. It becomes a sacred space in which false identities are falling away. The one who believed love had to be earned begins to remember that love is their nature. The one who believed control created safety begins to discover safety in presence. The one who believed waiting meant being forgotten begins to sense that life is still holding them in the uncertainty. The outer answer may still be unfolding, but you are no longer standing before the silence as the same person who first entered it. Something within you has begun to awaken. As these false identities loosen, you may realize that you were never seeking only an answer to a prayer. Beneath the specific request, there was often a deeper longing. You were seeking relief from the fear that you had been left alone. You were seeking permission to rest. You were seeking a way to trust life again after disappointment taught you to remain guarded. You may have prayed for someone to love you deeply because a part of you had never felt chosen. You may have asked for success because you believed achievement would finally make you worthy. You may have asked for an apology because you thought another person's words would release you from the past. These desires are human. They deserve compassion, not judgment. But no external answer can permanently heal a belief that remains hidden and unquestioned within you. If you believe you are unworthy, even genuine love may feel difficult to receive. If you believe people always leave, you may search for signs of abandonment even in safe relationships. If you believe your value depends on being needed, you may continue giving until resentment replaces kindness. Life may answer your prayer by bringing these patterns into the light. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You may wonder why healing seems to reveal more pain rather than less. But when a room has been dark for a long time, the first light does not create the dust. It simply reveals what was already there. Awareness is that light. It allows you to look at an old belief and say, this shaped the way I survived, but it does not have to define the way I live. Perhaps long ago, you learned that love had to be earned through good behavior. You became quiet when you wanted to speak. You became helpful when you needed help. You learned to recognize the moods of others before noticing your own. Years later, you may find yourself exhausted by relationships in which you give more than you receive. You may pray for appreciation while continuing to hide your real needs because you fear honesty will cause people to leave. The deeper answer may not be to make everyone appreciate your sacrifice. It may be to show you that love does not ask you to disappear. This is where forgiveness becomes part of the journey. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as something you offer because another person deserves it. But forgiveness is first a release within your own consciousness. It is the decision to stop carrying the emotional weight of an event everywhere you go. You may forgive and still create distance. You may forgive and still remember. You may forgive without restoring a relationship that is no longer safe, honest, or loving. Forgiveness does not always bring two people back together. Sometimes it allows one person to walk forward without continuing the conflict inside their own heart. Imagine holding a burning coal because you hope someone else will feel the heat. The longer you hold it, the more deeply it wounds your own hand. Forgiveness is not pretending the coal was harmless. It is choosing to put it down. You may not be ready to release everything at once. That is all right. Forgiveness can begin as a willingness. You may simply say, I am willing to no longer let this pain govern my life. Anger may return tomorrow. Grief may rise again when you thought you had moved beyond it. This does not mean you have failed. Healing often moves like the ocean. One wave comes forward and then recedes. Another follows. Yet beneath the movement, the ocean remains whole. Your true self is like that ocean. The emotions are real, but they are not the deepest truth of you. Beneath grief, resentment, and fear, there remains a capacity for love that has not been destroyed. Returning to that love requires surrender. Surrender means giving up the demand that life must match your picture before you will allow yourself to live. It is the release of the exhausting belief that your mind must control every detail. Think of a gardener who plants a seed and then digs it up every morning to see whether it has begun to grow. The constant checking prevents the very process the gardener wants to encourage. Some things need care, but they also need space. Your prayer may need that space. You can water it with intention. You can take wise action. You can remain attentive to opportunities and guidance. But you do not have to keep digging into the soil of your life, demanding visible proof that something is happening. Intention is different from control. Control says, this must happen exactly as I imagine. Intention says, I choose the energy I wish to bring, and I remain open to how life responds. You may set the intention to live peacefully even while the answer remains unknown. You may intend to speak honestly, treat yourself with kindness, or release relationships built upon fear. You may make yourself available to love without deciding in advance where that love must come from. When intention is rooted in love rather than fear, prayer begins to change. Prayer becomes less like bargaining and more like alignment. Instead of saying, please make life obey my plan, you may begin saying, help me remain connected to love as life unfolds. Instead of asking only, when will I receive, you may ask, what am I being invited to understand? Instead of praying, remove every uncertainty, you may whisper, guide me through what I cannot yet see. There is gentleness in this kind of prayer. It allows you to participate fully in life without pretending that you know the entire path. A river does not need to understand every turn before it moves. It responds to the land, bends around stone, narrows through difficult places, and continues toward the ocean. It does not consider the bend a failure. The bend is part of its journey. Your life may have taken a turn you did not expect. A relationship ended, a plan dissolved, a door closed after you had invested years of hope. The ego may call this proof that life has turned against you. But perhaps the path is bending. You may not yet see where it leads, but you can remain present to the step before you. You do not need the entire map in order to move with integrity today. Trust grows this way. It rarely arrives as complete certainty. It develops through small moments in which you discover that you can meet life without abandoning yourself. You trust when you pause before reacting from fear. You trust when you allow someone else to misunderstand you rather than betray your own truth. You trust when you rest without believing you must earn the right to breathe. You trust when you notice that even after loss, something within you remains alive. This inner aliveness is your connection to the source. It is not a distant force waiting somewhere outside you. It is the loving intelligence expressed through your awareness, compassion, intuition, and capacity to begin again. You may call it God, Spirit, Source, or simply the presence of love. The name matters less than the experience. It is the remembrance that you are part of something greater than the anxious story of the separate self. The ego says you are alone, competing for limited love in an uncertain world. The deeper self remembers that love is not a prize to be won. It is the essence from which you came and the energy through which you are most clearly guided. When you live from this remembrance, you begin to see other people differently. You notice that many are acting from wounds they have never learned to name. Their anger may be fear in disguise. Their control may come from a history of helplessness. Their distance may be the only form of protection they know. This understanding does not excuse harmful behavior. It simply prevents another person's unconscious pain from turning your heart into a permanent home for bitterness. Compassion allows you to say, I recognize that you are wounded, but I will not allow your wound to become my identity. You can bless someone from a distance. You can release them without condemning them. You can honor the life within them while refusing to participate in behavior that diminishes your own life. This is spiritual maturity, not the absence of boundaries, but boundaries without hatred. As this understanding deepens, the prayer you whispered begins to take on a new meaning. Perhaps you thought you were praying for life to return what had been lost. Yet life may be returning you to your own wholeness. Perhaps you asked to be rescued from loneliness, and the silence is teaching you how to become a loving presence to yourself. Perhaps you asked for someone to understand you, and you are learning to listen to your own heart. Perhaps you asked for the pain to disappear, and you are discovering a strength that does not need to deny the pain in order to remain peaceful. The answer may not yet be arriving from outside. It may be rising within you like the first light of morning. Dawn does not brighten the entire sky at once. A thin line appears along the horizon. The darkness is still present, but it is no longer complete. Slowly, without force, the light expands. Inner transformation often happens this way. It begins with one peaceful breath, one honest boundary, one moment in which you choose not to rehearse an old wound, one decision to stop asking fear to lead you. These moments may appear small, but they are signs that your consciousness is changing. You are returning to the self that existed before comparison, before people-pleasing, and before the belief that you had to control life in order to be safe. This self is not new. It has been waiting beneath the noise, quietly reminding you that peace is not something the world gives you after every condition becomes perfect. Peace is what becomes available when you stop arguing with the truth of this moment. From that peace, you can still dream, you can still pray, you can still take action and move toward healing, but you do so with open hands rather than clenched fists. You begin to say, I welcome what is aligned with love. I release what requires me to abandon myself. I trust that what is truly meant for my growth will not require me to live in constant fear. This is not a guarantee that life will always feel easy. It is a way of remaining connected when life becomes difficult. The prayer has not been forgotten. It may be changing form as it moves through the deeper intelligence of your life. What you requested may still be on its way, or the prayer may be leading you towards something you could not have imagined when you first whispered it. Either way, the silence is no longer empty. It is becoming a place of listening. It is becoming a space where forgiveness loosens the past, surrender opens the future, and love brings you home to the presence that never left you. You do not have to force yourself into trust. Trust can begin quietly. It can begin with one breath in which you stop imagining the worst. It can begin when an anxious thought appears and you choose not to follow it. It can begin when you place your hand over your heart and remind yourself, I do not know what happens next, but I am here and I am not separate from love. Take a few moments each day to return to this awareness. You do not need a perfect place or a complicated ritual. Sit near a window, close your eyes, or simply become still wherever you are. Allow the breath to slow. Let thoughts pass through awareness like clouds crossing an open sky. You do not have to fight them. You do not have to believe every one of them. Notice and gently return to the presence that is watching. Then bring your prayer into your heart once more. Speak it gently. Do not speak from desperation, as though love must be convinced to hear you. Speak from honesty. Let the desire be present without making it the condition of your peace. You may say, this is what I desire, but I am open to what love knows for me. Then release it. The answer may not arrive as a voice. It may appear as a growing awareness that one path no longer feels true. It may come as the courage to have an honest conversation, to forgive yourself, or to stop returning to a place where your spirit becomes smaller. It may arrive as an opportunity that looks different from what you expected. It may come as a delay that prevents you from entering something before you are ready. It may appear as an ending that makes room for a beginning you cannot yet see. You can also practice gratitude, not as a way of denying what is missing, but as a way of remembering what remains. The warmth of morning light, the breath moving through your body, a kind message, a quiet meal, or the strength that carried you through another difficult day can become reminders that life has not abandoned you. Gratitude does not erase sorrow. It creates enough space for sorrow and love to exist together. When an old wound returns, practice forgiveness again. Not because the past was acceptable, but because your present deserves freedom. Forgive another person in stages if necessary. Forgive yourself for what you did not know, for the boundaries you did not set, and for the years you spent searching outside yourself for the love that was quietly waiting within. Most importantly, continue practicing awareness. Notice when the ego begins demanding certainty. Notice when comparison makes you feel delayed. Notice when fear tells you that silence means rejection. Then pause. Ask yourself, is this thought bringing me closer to peace or deeper into fear? You do not have to condemn the fearful thought. It was formed to protect you. You can acknowledge it gently and choose not to let it lead. Remember that a delayed answer is not proof of an absent God. A closed door is not proof of an unworthy life. An uncertain season is not proof that you have lost your way. Sometimes the path becomes quiet because you are being invited to hear something deeper than the noise of your plans. Hold your dreams with love, but do not imprison your peace inside them. Take the next honest step and allow life to reveal the one after that. You are not required to understand the entire journey today. The river does not see the ocean from every bend, yet it continues. The seed does not know the shape of the flower, yet it opens. The dawn does not struggle to defeat the darkness, it simply brings light. Let your life unfold with that same gentleness. The wisdom you have been searching for is not foreign to you. It has appeared in every moment when you chose love over fear, truth over approval, forgiveness over resentment, and presence over endless worry. You are not becoming someone entirely new. You are remembering the peaceful self beneath the noise. You are returning to the presence that was with you before the prayer, within the prayer, and throughout the silence that followed. So breathe deeply and let your heart become quiet. What is meant to be understood will become clear in its season. What is meant to leave can be released with love. What is meant to remain will not require you to abandon yourself. Your prayer is held within a wisdom larger than your fear. And even before the outer answer arrives, you can rest in the deepest answer of all. You are loved, you are connected, and you have never been forgotten. If this message found you during a season of waiting, share one word in the comments that represents what you are learning to release or trust. And subscribe for more quiet spiritual reflections created to help you return to the peace, love, and wisdom already living within you.